timely, engaging, and in-depth look at issues of interest to the citizens of North and South Carolina. From the WJZY studios, it's Charlotte Now with Mike Collins.
Good evening. Sustainable development is a worldwide movement to encourage projects that are environmentally friendly in the short and long term. Ideas are being exchanged around the planet, and one big project that has found its way into the spotlight is right here in Charlotte. Reventure Park is the biggest project of its kind, possibly the first of its kind. Developers at this old chemical dye plant on the banks of the Catawba are trying to turn a series of old shuttered structures and the sprawling land that surrounds them into the region's first eco-industrial park. It is a mammoth undertaking, and just like all large projects, it has hit some snags along the way, but it promises to become a shining example of this sustainable development movement, and one that may be copied at other locations around the state, the nation, and the world. We talked to the man whose idea it was to turn this old toxic site into something new, clean, and environmentally friendly, and get a status report on the place when we come back. You know, it takes vision to look at 667 contaminated acres and some old buildings and see something new, fresh, and clean in it. But that's exactly what our guest tonight did when he came up with the idea for Reventure Park, which is on the banks of the Catawba River. It's been underway for a couple of years. Tom McKittrick is with us. Tom McKittrick is the CEO and founder of Foresight Development. They're working on revitalizing Reventure Park. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You started your company in 2004, as I understand, before the recession, with an eye toward doing just this. And then along comes this recession. Did it impact you in any way?
Well, just this. We started the company to buy surplus industrial real estate that was left in kind of manufacturing's exodus. And that was big, empty industrial buildings. We would backfill those companies with companies moving to the southeast. The debt markets crashed in 2008. We had to start rethinking that model. That's where the idea for the eco-industrial park came, to kind of revitalize these large complexes into a site specifically focused on attracting renewable energy projects.
So, yeah, but just be more specific. What exactly is an eco-industrial park?
Good question. So, unfortunately, our country is littered with very large manufacturing complexes, and these sites are left, they don't have the modern buildings that we were typically trying to buy, but they have lots of existing infrastructure, on-site power generation, rail infrastructure, wastewater treatment plants, and so forth. And the idea is we can reposition and repurpose that infrastructure to attract energy, fuel, and recycling type projects.
Now, your project has been in the news here on and off over the past couple of years, so people may know where it is, but in case they don't, locate it for us.
It is on the northwest side of Charlotte, it's directly across the Catawba River from Mount Holly. It's got 1.4 miles of frontage on the Catawba River, and it abuts the U.S. National Whitewater Center.
Now, this was, an old textile dye plant?
Correct, yes.
And in the course of making the dyes and dyeing the fabrics over the course of many years out at that plant, they did a pretty good job of polluting the land surrounding the plant, right?
They did. It was started in 1935, and so through the years, what they were doing at the time was state of the art. But as we know today, we know better on a lot of those practices, and it did create a lot of pollution. Clariant Corporation acquired the site in 1985, and with it they acquired all that contamination. They've spent upwards of $40 million remediating the site since 1985. So a lot of the hard work's done.
And it was on the federal government Superfund list, which means
Correct.
It was particularly contaminated, but it shouldn't have been on that list, and it's no longer on that list, which
That's right.
frees you up to do all kinds of things that you couldn't do before, correct?
That's correct.
For instance?
Well, North Carolina has what's called a brownfield program, which basically gives liability protection to companies that want to move onto a contaminated site. Basically, it says that those companies can never get pulled into the liability from that contamination that they did not cause. And we couldn't get that agreement with the Superfund label, so that was why it was so important to remove that. But now that the Superfund has been removed, the brownfield agreement is almost in place. It has just created a lot of activity in companies that want to be on that project.
So what you're doing many things here. You're going in and repurposing the buildings that already exist, and we'll talk about some of the things you're doing inside those buildings and what you're doing with the things that you're finding inside those buildings. But you've been helpful in cleaning up the land that surrounds this considerable amount of land on the water.
Correct.
And you're going to turn this into a renewable energy, for lack of a better term, I guess, manufacturing facility. What kinds of renewable energy will you be making there, if that's the right term?
Sure. We've the first project we actually announced on your radio show is a 4.5 megawatt biomass power plant. It's basically using wood fuel, sawdust, if you will, from crating material that would otherwise be landfilled. So we'll be creating electricity at 4.5 megawatts, a fairly large project from a renewable project perspective. We're working on a solar project there. We've got two companies that do waste plastics to transportation fuel. An anaerobic digestion company is talking to us. They take source separated food waste and create a methane gas that creates electricity. A single stream recycling facility, and on and on. There's just a lot of...
How unusual is it to have all these different ways of producing electricity all on one site working at the same time?
We think it's fairly unusual. Certainly developing a park like this that's focused on renewable energy, there's a couple of examples of those, but not many. And the EPA has told us this is the largest project of its type currently being developed in the U.S.
I want to back up to the very first thing we talked about with regard to renewable energy, and that is your burning wood products, sawdust. And let's be clear about this. It's wood waste from construction and destruction and other things that we do in our everyday life that would have gone into a landfill.
That's right. We're not cutting down trees and grinding them up to create electricity. It is wood waste and wood fuel effectively that's created from whatever manufacturing process.
But you are going to burn that wood waste. So just for the benefit of people watching here tonight, what's the difference between generating electricity by burning wood waste and generating electricity by burning coal?
Well, burning coal, you're creating electricity with a biogenic matter. And coal is a fossil fuel. That's the primary difference. Wood is a significantly cleaner burning fuel than coal. Coal is hard to clean up those emissions, and the technology that we're proposing for this first project is a pyrolysis unit that basically creates a synthesis gas. That gas is then burned in a direct fire genset, just like a natural gas fired engine, a combustion engine. So it's a very clean system with de minimis emissions. We're solving for the lowest possible emission threshold.
Originally, correct me if I'm wrong, this part of the project was going to be an incinerator, and you were going to collect all of Mecklenburg County's trash, or as much as you could handle, and burn the trash. That caused some problems. That's off the table, right?
It is off the table, and it's unfortunate. It was, and we weren't burning trash. And everyone, the word incinerator is a controversial word, if you will. Basically, we're taking Mecklenburg County's residential trash, extracting additional recyclables from that waste stream, and then that which could not be recycled would be shredded into fuel and used to create electricity. It's a significantly better improvement over landfilling that material, which is happening today. So it would have doubled Mecklenburg County's recycling rates and drastically reduced the amount of landfill material that goes into the ground. It's unfortunate that larger project didn't happen, but we're thrilled that we're kicking off the facility with this smaller
Who will
facility.
be buying the energy that you produce? Is Duke Energy buying a lot of it, or some of it, part of it, all of it,
Well,
part of it?
We're selling the electricity to Duke Energy at the avoided cost, and we've signed the power purchase agreement to buy the renewable energy credits that the project would create with Electricities, which is North Carolina Electric Cooperative.
It strikes me that this is a unique project, and it's one that's not being done, I don't think, elsewhere, and as you said, the EPA says it's the largest of its kind. How do you know how to do all this? Because there's a lot of money at stake here.
There certainly is. We've gotten our MBA in how to pull a project like this together. There's an incredible amount of moving parts, and it's been a fantastic learning experience. And what we've learned, we're trying to create a perfect example here with ReVenture so we can duplicate these type projects around the country.
You are projecting that you'll create over 1,100, when this is all up and running, 1,100 green-collar jobs and $900 million in new investments. That's a lot of money and a lot of jobs, but what are green-collar jobs? What does that mean?
Jobs that are related to the clean energy economy, which is a broad spectrum of projects. There is an incredible amount of companies that have some type of new technology to create electricity or fuels or recycling, and there's just a lot of job opportunities in that space. Generally, everyone understands that we need to be using creating cleaner electricity, using less fossil fuels, and recycling more. So those create a wide array of jobs.
We've talked in the past on this and other programs about Charlotte's desire to become an energy hub, perhaps the nation's energy hub. I don't know whether that's a practical idea or not, but we certainly are taking steps to become one, if not the. Is this a component of that? Is this being viewed by everybody who's putting this together as a component of that?
We certainly hope it is. I believe it absolutely is a component of that. Charlotte's done a fantastic job of positioning itself as an energy capital. I think there's a lot more to be done. Mm-hmm. I think we're forgetting the entrepreneurs. That's a very important element of the whole energy capital concept, and I think it's just now being recognized that there needs to be more attention paid there. We're very fortunate to have big companies as part of this energy initiative, Siemens, Areva, Duke, and others. But the entrepreneurs need to be paid attention to, and I think that's starting to happen.
Tom McKittrick is our guest tonight. He's the founder of Foresight Development. They're developing ReVenture Park, and we'll talk about some of the core principles involved, because there's a lot more to this than just generating energy, and we'll do that when we come back.